Jillian Schwedler. I'm Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. My presentation was on the hypothesis that political inclusion will lead to moderation, and I did comparative study of Jordan and Yemen. And I found that political inclusion doesn't automatically or mechanistically lead groups to become more moderate. But under certain conditions, it creates logics for them to explore moderation. And the difference in my case is, in Jordan, in both cases, there was an opening of the political system in the early 90s, and both Islamist parties decided to run as political parties. In the Jordanian case, it also had internal debates to justify whether that was in alliance with Islam and their core beliefs. And in the Yemeni case, the party was more divided and never had those internal debates. And so I saw two levels: the institutional openings that provide opportunities for moderation, but really the internal justifications and grappling with ideas is a core explanatory factor why I see it in Jordan and not in Yemen. The notion of imagination more than cognitive maps, because maps in a way sounds like they're fixed. And so that's not, but I like the idea. And so one of the things I talked about that's relevant to that is this sort of moderation that's behavioral moderation versus ideational moderation or ideological moderation or moderation in your belief system. And I think that that's really, the idea of imagination is interesting because you can have the sort of structural incentives for groups to begin to participate in these political elections, but once they're in there, if they're talking about whether they can justify it or not, it creates the possibility for them to imagine different kind of alternatives, like how this could work for them, how this is actually a better representation of, Islam, which should be applied to a specific time and context, right? Islam is not supposed to be fixed for all times. It's applicable to all environments. And so I think it allows, leaders to imagine different kinds of scenarios, to imagine possibilities of working with leftists where they weren't imaginable previously. In my book, Faith in Moderation, I actually talk about this in terms of a move from the fantastical to the imaginable. To sort of things that used to be impossible to conceive, Islamists and communists cooperating, becomes imaginable, and then it becomes logical.